We will call this meeting of the Fayette County School Corporation Board of School Trustees work session to order. We're here at the administration building. It's the 24th of February, 6 p.m. And it doesn't say that we're going to do the pledge, but I think it would be nice if we did do the pledge.
Yes, we would.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And your papers.
And my papers were falling.
Okay, we're going to begin with just asking for a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended.
I so moved.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now we will jump right into the discussion items about the early childhood program. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Ms. President, Board. Thanks for coming out, and thank you to our guests in the audience as well, and administrators. I'm going to go through some slides. As you recall, at the last board meeting, I went through a presentation. This is a little bit different, but it has some of the same information. I want to be sure that this information is explained again, and with Bob here, if he wants to capture some more of that. But what I've talked with the board about at different times in the last couple of years has been the issues we face with our declining enrollment. And then also the need to invest more in our early childhood program with preschool. And as a result of that, we now have a very healthy, vibrant preschool program that's run by Kelly McCollum. And we serve a lot of kids who are ages 3 to 5 before that they start kindergarten. And so we've seen some really tremendous success because of the programming that we've had in place for years, like our Head Start program and our developmental preschool. But as you recall, we've also opened up 3 Title I preschool programs in the last 2 years to support kids using our federal grant for Title I. So I just want to go over some of this information. Feel free to stop me, ask questions anytime along the way. So our current setup, this is what I shared at our last meeting. Maplewood currently has 3 Head Start classrooms, 2 Title I preschool classrooms, and 1 developmental preschool classroom. Grandview has 2 Head Start classrooms and 1 Title I preschool program. Fayette Central has 1 Head Start classroom. If you recall, when we had Magic Moments, we had a Head Start classroom out there, and then we moved that to Maplewood. And then Eastview, we moved our life skills classrooms, there are 2 of those, to Eastview, where they had originally been, and then brought those 2 Head Start classrooms to Maplewood. This was strategic for a couple of reasons. One is Maplewood has capacity to hold preschool classrooms and Head Start classrooms because we have bathrooms in each of those classrooms, and that's one of the requirements for our Head Start classrooms and our developmental preschool program. Title I does not require a separate bathroom, but it really does make it handy when you have a bathroom that's sized for little guys and girls. So that's a bonus that Maplewood houses those. So what I'm proposing to the board for your consideration is to move those remaining preschool classrooms to Maplewood. That would give us 10 classrooms right now, with the 6 Head Start classrooms, the 3 Title I preschool rooms, the 1 developmental preschool room, and we are also estimating that we're going to need an additional developmental preschool classroom. And I'll share some information about that, but we have a significant number of children in First Steps currently, about 4 times what we normally have, 3 to 4 times with what we typically have in that population. So we are watching that, but based on my conversation with Kelly, and Kim, and Megan Gilman, our special ed director, we're probably going to need to add another one. So that would move us to 11 classrooms at for next school year.
Could you explain the difference between developmental and regular for the
Sure, yeah.
audience,
And
public?
Kelly can jump in whenever, but Head Start is a federally funded program. They have very specific guidelines with how you manage that grant and what you do. There are a lot of hoops to jump through, I guess, to say it in a nice way, but there's a lot already set in place that we have to follow, very stringent guidelines. So we have been the local agent for Head Start for years. A lot of school districts don't do that, but we chose to do that many years ago as a school corporation, and I think that's a good thing for our kids. and it really helps our kids become acclimated in our buildings and with our procedures, routines, different things. 3 Title I classrooms, they're funded through, as we are a district with 50 to 60% free and reduced numbers, our funding is based on that. And it's been going down every year. The federal government continues to cut that. But one of the decisions we made when I came back was to reduce our coaches. We had instructional coaches at each of our elementaries, and we were spending about half of our budget on staff that wasn't in the teaching or the direct impact piece with classroom teachers and assistants. So we were able to capture those funds, and we made a decision as a district to invest those funds in early childhood, a significant portion of those. And then our other program is our developmental preschool, and this is a special needs program where kids qualify, they have an individual educated, and this program provides a way for them to catch up. There are other qualifiers besides that, but that's the majority, I think, of our kids. Is that pretty accurate?
So our developmental preschool, to be considered a true developmental preschool program, half of the students have developmental delays or IEPs or other special needs that are being serviced. The other half are what we consider typical peers. So they serve as the children who are, 3, 4, and 5 years old, who are that peer model for language development and just the play-based instruction.
I'm glad you mentioned that, I forgot
Yeah.
to say that. So we do have the like peers, and I talked about in the last presentation where we have some kids who are double dipping, and that would be one case where we may have kids who are the like peers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. When we look at the space at Maplewood, Maplewood's a pretty good-sized building, and there's a lot of great usable space there. And so other things we would do, we have moved the Head Start staff from the Resource Center. That's another topic that the board's been discussing, because the Resource Center is going to need some significant dollars to keep it open and to keep it maintained, which that's going to be a decision at a later time. But we had housed many of our Head Start staff in that separate building on Grand Avenue where they weren't directly in the building with the kids. So our nurse, for example, was housed. Made some moves in that building where we could bring that staff on board. It's a little crowded, I will be honest. I think we had 6
Lot of
people
fun,
in one
Kevin.
room or 5 at one point.
7 of us.
7, okay.
7, yeah.
It was too many, but they have been very great about just being very flexible. One other piece of that, we had some space open up because our numbers have continued to decrease at Maplewood. And as a result, we did not need 2 sections in all of our grade levels this year. So we were able to find 2 classrooms. We also want to create a space where our staff can use classroom space for professional development, meeting space. We have some rooms at the Resource Center, but we're trying to plan ahead to look at other space such as Magic Moments in Maplewood to have some of that space where we can meet with teachers, do other professional development opportunities. We'd like to make a larger space for our food pantry. Kim and I delivered some food over there Friday, I believe, and it's a great setup, but it's a very small space off the gym. So that would be one of our dreams, is to make it bigger.
Is it the
more
room
welcoming
between the
space.
gym and the cafeteria?
No, it's one of the old locker room / gym offices.
Really?
There's a shower in there.
Converted it.
It's converted into
Just
a nice
pretty good.
closet now.
Okay.
It's working.
It's a great sized room, but if we could get a larger room, it would be better.
And then also room to expand and grow our early childhood programming would certainly be the other piece of that. Any questions on this information? The benefits, this is information I shared at the last, but just combining the services that support our earliest learners is very important. And then sharing those resources that we have for the social emotional learning component is very important. And then it would also, just being able to, in a way that you have that staff there to promote that cognitive and the language skills, which are deficits for the majority of our preschool population that enter at age 3. So really just building a language-rich environment in a building that's really geared for the youngest learners. And then that continuity of services, because we have kids who do move around a lot during the year, so we don't have to worry about those kids because they're all going to be in that one building. Also with the coordinators, with having Head Start in 3 different buildings right now, we have our people spread out. So this will allow for more collaboration and really everybody working together as a team in one site. And then integrating all the family engagement pieces. I envision them creating some really nice family engagement areas for parents to come in. I know there's been talk about coffee bar, things like that to try to reach out to parents in the mornings. And then, like I said, the Language Rich program, and then really just focusing on parent support, because that's such a big component of Head Start, is that family component and working with parents. So Kelly wants to grow that piece, and this would allow them space for that. So why repurpose Maplewood? And this is where I want everyone to understand why. There were several reasons we looked at that. The first was we didn't have to spend money on adding bathrooms in classrooms. That's a pretty significant expense when you look at adding the commodes and the sinks. We may have to add some smaller commodes or sinks at some point. We have modified some restrooms already, but we may have some minor, or if we do have to add more classrooms, at some point we may have to add another bathroom, but right now we're in good shape. The majority of our preschool kids live within the city limits. That's a huge piece when we're providing transportation for the kids. Taking them to that one central location would be a cost savings, but it would also help with just managing the transportation side.
Scott, are we 80%, 90%?
With what?
That majority?
I don't
Not that
have the, I said Maplewood is in our enrollment. We're now at 109 to another school support this.
That is
I could
that's
find
probably
that
a touch.
out.
Yeah, I'd be kind of,
Yeah, we could
You know.
run
Yeah, we can
numbers to
figure it
find
out.
that out. I can get that information for you.
Okay.
I do not know, but we can do that. Terry, did you get that? Okay. You may have it before the meeting, so we're, no pressure.
Low pressure.
And then also, we already have 6 preschool classrooms at Maplewood. They've already made that move, and I believe they've become very acclimated in the building, and it's their home. So those are the primary reasons why we looked at Maplewood. As I shared at the last meeting, this was a logo designed by one of our Career Center kids. You like the name, the logo? I'm sort of attached to it already, but, it's certainly your approval as well.
You got an approval of a 4-year-old, they thought it was cool.
Yeah. So redistricting, that's the other piece. So before we go on to that, are there any questions, or do you want me to go through this part and then come back and answer other questions? Because these are really
They're
hand in hand, but they're separate pieces.
One of the questions that one of my patrons wanted to know, having them all in one space, because we have such huge differences developmentally in kids, they were concerned about tracking kids. In other words, putting a large number of the kids who were below level in one classroom as opposed to spreading them out. And from what I'm gathering, that's not gonna happen because they have the peer, they were just afraid that their kid was gonna be put in a classroom with all other kids just like them and wasn't going to get the push.
You want to speak to that?
So, because we have multi-age classrooms, 3 to 5-year-olds, we have that healthy mix of children who might have extra needs than other children. The way that we do our Head Start classroom, it's based off of income, and right now, based off of their district. So we bus them into what school they go to, but if they were all bused to Maplewood, we would still take those into consideration, just because we know parent clusters, parents might live close to each other, we want to keep those relationships alive. So we're very careful about placing kids, and within Head Start, we can only have up to a certain percentage of students with IEPs per classroom, because then it becomes a developmental classroom, so that's tracked.
And that's why we have the need for another developmental preschool, because
Well,
we
with-
can only put so many in there.
Well, also too, with First Steps having larger numbers.
Very large.
But you're saying in the developmental,
Because if we put all children with needs in one room, then it becomes a self-contained special ed room.
We don't have any.
We don't have any of those in our corporation, we're full inclusion.
I think that was the parents' fear, that they were going to not be included. And I gathered from talking to this parent that perhaps that parent had been in that situation at one point in time, and was concerned. So that's great.
question. Anything else with the preschool at this time? Okay, how about if I go through this? As most rural communities in Indiana, we are continuing to see a decline in population. Our whole region is feeling that. There are a couple of pockets where kids are, where they're stable, such as Centerville and Northeastern, but that's more of kids just moving from Richmond schools basically into those. They're still losing, as all of our elementary population by 426. I was born a Frazee Falcon, you know, I was in my school for 12 years. Write that down, Bob, I'm sorry. But for 7 years, and so, you know, I know the pride and the feeling, you know, the Maplewood Bulldogs and all that. And this is hard, but at the same time, I feel that you hired me to put us in a position where we can be healthy down the road and be sure that we're offering the opportunities for kids. And so this is one of those decisions that I'm bringing to you because I feel that if we don't do something now, it's going to be a lot more challenging in a couple more years if we continue to see a decline of 50 to 60 kids in our schools over the next 3 years each year.
Wasn't there too the issue that we talked about curriculum-wise, and particularly the elementary school, to keeping everybody just about on the same page at the same time because of the transiency of the kids moving from Grandview to Frazee to Maplewood, and so we've kind of tried to address that problem indirectly,
Right.
and it's my understanding that we are going to have some really good data, thanks to the transportation software to exactly where kids are and in grade levels. So we're not going to chop up we're just going
Right.
to tweak.
Right. And the nice thing is too, before Alquina and Orange closed, we had other district boundaries, and as Kim and I have been looking at some of that information with Terry on that program, we may see some of these boundaries shift back to what they were before 2011, I'll be honest. So, you know, but our goal is to impact as few of students as possible in our schools. Certainly the 191 students will be the greatest impact from Maplewood. You know, one question I think, Ann, you may have brought up last time at the last meeting was transportation. We do have a lot of kids who walk, you know, 25 to 30 who walk to Maplewood at least. You know, we will have bus stops closer to their homes where we will transport those kids. And some parents don't like their kids walking, you know, 4 blocks, especially in the winter. So that will help some of those pieces too, because there will not be a walk zone in that area. So I'm just trying to look at ways.
We haven't done our due diligence then in telling all these children and grandchildren how we walked 6 miles uphill in the snow to school and back if they can't walk the 4 blocks.
I've used that before.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up is that having gone through the closing of Orange and Alquina and having not been a fan of that in the past, one thing that's concerned me before this idea came up was that we would end up having to close another elementary school. With the decline in all the buildings, but, I mean, obviously Maplewood has the most, but except for Eastview and some of those kids, I think we had some, are transferred in. We've had such a decline, and I've all along feared that we would have to close one of our buildings, and that is, I mean, it was not fun with Orange and Alquina. It's a little different when they're city schools, but it's still an empty building, a neighborhood that's losing something. And this way, I feel like at least we are keeping a neighborhood together with a school there, even if it's not the K through 6.
And we didn't want to close the school, and we're not. We're repurposing them.
It will live on.
It will live on, and maybe our biggest building with student enrollment in a few years.
Well, this will give us a chance to balance those classrooms. I think that's real important.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to make this so about money. Money's a factor. I'm not going to say it's not. We have to be fiscally healthy. We have to continue to find ways to increase teacher pay and compensation. We have to stay competitive in our region, pay our bills. But at the same time, with those 426 students, that's over $2.7 million in state funding this year alone that we've lost. as those 426 elementary kids left. That's a lot of money. We haven't made those cuts and changes through staffing when we lost the 2.7. So, you know, it has presented some issues where we have class sizes that run from 16 to 30 in our elementaries right now, and that, to me, is not acceptable.
And we're gonna be able to do this without losing the staffing that you
We
were
will
talking about.
not,
So
yes,
that's very important.
yes.
So do we have any sense of, obviously, those are the highs and the lows, do we have any sense with the redistricting what an average class size will be? Because
Not yet.
we're not gonna have any 30s anymore, and we're not gonna have any 16s. Do we have any sense yet of?
It's not going to be perfect. I'll tell you, just we're playing with some numbers. Until we can sit down and really dig into this, I think we'll be closer to that 20 per classroom to 25
Okay. That's
range
a-
rather than, but we may have, I'll be honest, it's not going to be perfect because Everton is not a growing area. So we make this move now, and if the board approves this redistricting and this proposal, Everton, you know, that population is aging. Is that a fair thing to say, Brian? Where a lot of your families who moved out there, their kids are growing up or they're in high school or moving on out. Brian's not aging.
Either am I. I'm not aging either.
I'm not aging either, right?
I'm not going there, but I think at the same time, I think one of Brian's challenges will be, you know, do we have enough kindergartners coming in to maintain 2 sections? I'll be honest, I think that's a challenge out there. I think Fayette Central will be in the same position
Well, but,
because people have been out there, they live on farms.
For years.
And they aren't moving.
no.
We're seeing a turnover in our city districts with younger families moving into Village Creek, Hanson Meadows, out here around the high school, out by the country club. We're seeing that turnover there, but we're just not seeing it in the county because a lot of them are farms or people are living there, you know, and their kids have grown and moved on. So that's just a challenge that this isn't going to be perfect, but I think it will help us get class sizes closer to that 20 per class than 16 or 15.
Right.
I think we had 14 one year since I've been back in one of our classes. So I think it'll help us get that 20 to 25 range
Well, and we
consistently.
can tweak some areas. Eastview, which is close, right, isn't it the largest one now?
Right now, Eastview is the largest school.
A largest school, but where it encompasses, we could take some children there and they could easily go to Everton because it's just down the road. And I think the parents would, it would be different, but I don't think it would cause a lot of consternation. How are we gonna handle transfers into schools?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in just a second.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question, Scott.
yeah.
What's our largest 2 or 3 classrooms right now?
Um,
Do we have any with 30?
We have 30 at Everton. We have one class with 30 there where they have 30 kids in the grade.
In the
And we
grade.
have an assistant in there. Frazie's the same thing, and we provided an assistant there as well in 5th grade. So we have those 2 where we're at 30, and we capped it in that range and have done some creative things with the principal to support.
What grade level is, you have 30, Brian?
Third grade.
Third grade, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
That's tough for the
It is.
kids and the teachers.
it is.
Well, it's just not a good.
It doesn't matter what grade it is.
Yeah,
No.
but
My
6th
daughter was in
graders-
a 6th grade with 33. It was
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't like it, and so we need to do something. This will be a step to get us through several years, I think. So I just wanted to show where we're at. When we looked at the fall of 2011, when Orange and Alpina had closed, and we went to our current configuration, you look at the numbers in that column, those are nice size elementary schools. Grandview was a little bit too large, but they had the space to handle it. These are our new numbers as of fall, so we have dropped a little bit, but not too much from those numbers. We may be a little higher than 426 with the loss at this point. But you look at for Eastview has grown, but if you'll recall, we also moved the life skills program there this year, and there are, I believe, 19
There are
children.
19.
So they would have remained flat over that time period, but they have about 30-plus transfers.
They have the most transfers right now.
And so that's why their numbers are a little larger.
How will our redistricting affect transfers? What, for example, what if a parent of a sixth grader going in and they would be say right now they go to
Good question.
Fayette Central and, well, maybe better a bit, now they go to Frazee, okay?
Mhm.
And under the new provisor, they would go to Fayette Central for sixth grade. Would they have, I know that they would have to provide their own transportation, but you go by any elementary school at the time of dismissal, and you wonder if there are any children on the bus because it's backed up so far.
Right.
But I'm just wondering how, do we have any idea of how many parents would opt for that? Because that could skew our numbers, and if we deny transfers, then, which we have not been doing for quite a while.
Well, we do deny some transfers.
Some of them we do,
but
they don't meet board policy.
I'll get to that here in just a second.
Okay,
because
all right, sorry.
I'm going to get to it here in these slides, but, better balanced class size would be one of our biggest priorities. And then also providing more resources to staff in our remaining 5. We have Title I dollars that, we want to be able to push some more support, because one of the biggest areas, and I think any of our educators in here would say, is that social emotional component, better supporting kids who are in trauma. We've got to continue to find ways to support them, and we are doing some things now, but I'm hoping we'll have some other staff who can help support in those areas too. The turnaround room, Leslie, I know, visited that at Grandview, and, finding people to do those. We have, 2 of those set up or 3 now?
2, and we're working on a third
On
one.
the third in our elementaries, just finding ways to better support kids in those areas, because that's important, and we have to support our teachers as well. When you have kids who have greater needs than what they can do in a whole class setting all day. So that's one of our important pieces there. Maintaining a strong financial position. We're continually asking our teachers, our principals to do more with less. And, hopefully this will keep us in a good position where we can continue to fund all the programs and opportunities for kids. So that's important. And then one of the goals in these, I'll talk about the transfer piece in this too. Our goal is to minimize the number of students impacted with this move. Early estimates will probably be, we're hoping to be 10 to 12% or less of kids who have to move from their current school. That doesn't include the 191 at Maplewood. But we're really trying to be very thoughtful as we just look at some of the preliminary information and look at our district boundaries. How do we impact the fewest number of kids? Knowing though we need to move some kids to balance the schools and class sizes. So that's one of our biggest tasks. And then, Ann, this addresses, I want to be sure that Bob captures this too. No one will lose their job. And I think that's a fear. Even a bus driver asks, am I going to lose my job if Maplewood is no longer needing me to drive kids? No, because we're still going to have those kids. You may just be driving a different route than you have for the last 10 years. So I just want that everyone to know the board, I do not believe would support that, and I do not support cutting staff and just terminating them. We'll take care of that through retirements, when people
Natural
resign, and through attrition, like I said, so that's important. The other is with the transfer. We're going to still allow the transfers. When we look at those kids, I lived through 3 redistrictings when I was in my last district. And, we always try to look at those kids who are being impacted, who it's their last year in a school. So we will definitely look at next year's 6th graders and work with families where we can cap class sizes. And, Everton may have 5 extra spaces in their 6th grade next year. And if they're, 4 or 5 6th graders being moved, they're not really going to lose many kids because they need more kids. But I'm just using them as an example. There would be an opportunity if parents can provide transportation that Kim would more than likely approve that and say, your child can continue at Everton because we have space. So we're gonna look at that as the first priority.
Scott, the reason there is if parents can provide transportation each day, so if the kid wants to transfer or a family member wants their child to transfer to a different school, is the reason that, are you stating that we're not gonna be able to provide transportation for those kids? Is that what you're stating?
We haven't.
We,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Okay.
typical with the transfer, because if we did that, we would be busing kids all over the county.
Okay.
So,
I just
you know,
wanted
there,
clarification. I
Right.
figured, and then they could be on the bus for over an hour if you're gonna do
Right.
that.
yeah, and we're trying to minimize the bus routes to even make them shorter
Yeah.
if we can. And, you know, we have some kids on the bus for an hour.
What about staff's children? So we probably have teachers who teach in a building that's outside of their district, and their kids go to their building because then it's easy for pickup and taking them. Will that still be a consideration, a priority for our staff over the other folks in the community?
How do we handle that now?
That's the way we handle it
We have written
now.
procedure
We have
that,
procedures for that, we would maintain
yeah, that
those,
we'll
yeah.
maintain for that, for staff.
Okay. Thank
And that's not just teachers, that's
you. Right, yeah, I
You know,
should clarify that.
secretary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Any staff.
Food service.
anybody
whoever.
that works for Fayette County
Right.
Schools.
Right. Kelly, you have one
I
at,
have one at Maplewood who will be impacted if this goes through next year. He'll be a sixth grader next year, so the parent perspective of this too. So.
but we will follow those, and we're really gonna try to accommodate. I'm hoping that the parents really are in, you know, they really wanna keep their kids in this school. If we have space and they can do that, you know, we'll
Yeah,
work with
we'll work
them.
with them.
And we have transfers who go to grandma's house.
Mm-hmm.
That's in, for example, you know, we have kids who, grandma lives in Fayette Central, and the child lives in the Frazee district, where if the child is picked up and dropped off at Fayette Central in that district, we bus those
Yeah,
kids there
alternative
already with
transportation.
transfer.
And I'm not trying to make
So
this
we
difficult,
accommodate.
I'm just thinking out loud, like, so sixth graders at Maplewood. Wouldn't it be great if at least a core group of them were kept together? I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, I don't know if that's even possible, but that would be nice. I mean,
There will
I'm
be.
just gonna use
That's-
Kelly as an example, her son might have
That'll be
some
very
buddies. and-
likely. That will be very likely.
Okay.
Because we're moving, really, when you look at the district, Maplewood's right in the center, the
Yeah.
heart of Connersville. Those kids will move out primarily into the other three city
Grandview,
schools.
Eastview.
And so there will be kids at each grade level who will know each other in
Clusters.
there. Yeah, there'll be
Neighborhoods.
clusters,
Yeah,
yeah, neighborhoods.
Well, and two, with the statistics I've seen previously, we have a lot of kids that move within the city schools
Sure.
anyway.
Very transient. within
Very,
the schools.
very transient, because they've been at Grandview and then they go to Maplewood, or might show up at Eastview or Frazee. So we have kids that have experienced this previously, and hopefully some of that, by tweaking our boundaries a little bit, depending upon housing issues, maybe we wouldn't get as much of that.
We're hoping we don't have as much transiency with three city schools, honestly. We think we'll see that decrease. Good questions, though. I shared a timeline. I've updated it a little because one thing I didn't have on the initial timeline was the last item. Something I talked with Kim about. In my previous district, we did school visits for the kids being impacted, and Kim said that happened when Alcoin and Orange closed. So we would offer that during that last full week of the school year as well, to bus kids over and let our principals and counseling staff just show them around and make a connection to them. So we will have that piece built into for our kids to go visit. And then the other right above that is that's that transfer, the initial student transfer request forms. That's where we'll get the word out to our parents and get those into Kim. So we can look at our transfers and start balancing grades as much as we can with transfer requests too. So we will definitely honor that and follow those procedures for that.
I think the school visits will be really imperative, because I know the kids coming into the sixth grade, into the middle school, the sixth graders are wide-eyed, and it, having been there for a little while and getting their feet wet, really makes them feel a lot better once they get there permanently. And they, of course, know no one, and then they look around and they know.
Realize they know more than
They know more than, yes, yes.
They do. And my daughter is a fourth grade teacher at Maplewood, and she said her kids are wanting to come talk to you about what they want you to do with next year and who they want to put together and stuff, so I guess I'm
They're
gonna have
redistricting for us.
They're gonna redistrict with me, I guess.
No, I
got
wanted,
some-
Ms. Collins, can I have this person and this person and this person?
That's what they're
in my
wanting to do, so.
class?
Scott, sorry for my ignorant question, but you mentioned expanding the food pantry at Maplewood. Are they currently partnered with somebody? I know they used to be one of the churches that Maplewood was
No,
partnered
it's
up
through
with.
Gleaners.
Gleaners.
Oh, with Gleaners. So if you're talking about expanding it, is it a thought perhaps that Maplewood might eventually be a food distribution, essentially located?
We
I'm big on,
We haven't
you know-
gone that big yet, but that
Oh,
was
okay.
the idea.
Well, you
Like
Like
with
the food
expansion.
hub that's been
Yes.
talked about at the Food Policy Council.
Yeah.
And I know
That would need a
logistics-
lot of room.
Yeah,
Kelly.
I don't know if we
hold
could
on.
do that much.
Okay, but I'm
But we,
just throwing it
expanding
out.
that and even having more
They
offerings.
moved it from the high school out to.
I was one, yes.
Yeah. But I
Okay.
could see us having more space there to expand that and even including
Essentially
more
located,
toiletries and
Yeah.
other things too, to have room to store more.
yeah. Okay.
So, yeah,
Carry on.
good question. So this is the timeline. I think the next piece would be, there's some things contingent with the Head Start grant and some of our Title I funding and the grants that we have to submit this spring. Is, this is the timeline that I put forth. You're the board, you are the governing body, and you can say, no, I don't want to do this, or we can say, we're not ready. It's my job as superintendent to bring to you this proposal. And then, my thought would be at our March 10th meeting is to make this with the final recommendations. That gives us 2 months of school to really, or 3 months almost, to really start working through getting information out to parents, getting our site visits, just so we get everything out and set. We need to also look at our teaching staff. We've got to find homes for them, make sure that we go through that process where they can request first and second choices and grade levels and things like that, and try to honor that as much as we can, and with our support staff as well, finding homes for them. So there's a lot of work to do in the next 3 to 4 months.
but we're going into it with our eyes wide open as far as good data and good information. So when we make a decision, we're doing so with enough information to be forewarned. It looks like we're trying to have a lot of foresight here. And the ripple effect of all this to minimize that for everybody. And that's much appreciated.
But it's still, it's going to impact kids.
Yeah,
And when you look at our motto, always think in terms of the kids, and that really truly is my lens, and our lens is we're trying to, but we're also trying to look ahead for our future kids, the kids who haven't even been born yet, of how we can better support them. And I don't want us to get to a point where we're going to be cutting programs and opportunities and resources,
we have too needy a population to do
and
that.
our kids are too important. So that's really all I have.
Okay, well,
Any other thoughts, comments from anyone? Anything you want me to do in the meantime?
I think anybody that's gonna be moving, whether it's Maplewood kids or after we redistrict, that they should get a hard copy. I'm a hard copy person. They should get a hard copy, letter, whatever.
We're planning-
We'll
explaining
mail
what's-
those
Yeah,
out.
we're
Yeah.
planning to do that.
Yeah.
And also maybe have at Maplewood, have parents come in there and explain it to them, those 191 kids that'll be affected, as to, I'm sure they'll have some questions. And I think the more transparent it's made, the easier it's going to be for everybody. These are not decisions that are taken lightly, but they were gonna be to the benefit of us all down the road.
If there's no further discussion, we will move on to patron comments. Did patrons need to fill something out or no?
We requested that they did, and I don't have any, but
Okay.
I may have.
Is there anybody that would like to speak or have an opinion, or, I don't know if there's anybody behind Bob, I can't see?
No.
No?
Or questions?
Or input, any thoughts, just anything you want to share with us? You guys
Put
are
the little one
too
to sleep.
quiet, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, Scott put the.
I
Yeah,
put
you
her
put
to
the baby
sleep,
to
didn't I? Do you want me to come over and talk more? And
Follow you home, so the child goes to sleep at home.
So are you saying that Maplewood will be from Head Start to kindergarten?
No, it would just be all preschool.
All
And
preschool.
No
it's
kindergarten.
No kindergarten.
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
So the children that would start to kindergarten would stay K through 6, much as they do today
in the other five
In the other
schools.
in the other 5 schools.
How are you gonna divide the kids up that are at Maplewood? How do is it from Maplewood to 30th Street that will go to Grandview, or do you
Yeah.
know that yet?
We don't know that yet, but we're gonna try to keep neighborhoods together as much as possible. But when you look at the Maplewood district, you know, we will have to probably divide that into 3 different sections. So some will go to Grandview, some will go to Eastview, and some will go to Frazee.
But it won't affect by the grade, right? It will do just the
So all your kids would go to the
same
same.
school?
Yeah.
So if you had 3 kids in the elementary grades, they would all 3 go to the same school and ride the same
Not
bus.
divided by grade.
Hmm?
It's not grade level building.
No, it's not grade level buildings.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
That's a good question.
Okay, nothing else? All right, I would like to seek I guess I have to seek a motion to adjourn.
Chris?
I will.
Thank you, Chris. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Mark. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Work session is adjourned. Thank you.